Back for another edition of In the Huddle. Carl Dukes put him up along with my man Jason LaCanfora. Yeah, I guess I'm just so excited because of what I saw last night, Jason. Lamar freaking Jackson. I'm not even sure how to describe what's going on with Lamar, except he's better than he's been, and he's been an MVP twice in this league. That was a beat down last night of the Buccaneers, and I know they had some big losses at the wide receiver position. But let's start with Lamar and talk about how he's leading this Ravens team. There's no question in my mind they have the best offense in the league. There's no doubt. But can they sustain this? What's the key to why they're having this kind of success, Jason?
Well, I mean, I think Lamar Jackson's the best football player in the NFL, and I think it's by some considerable margin. And even in the years where he won the MVP or won a unanimous MVP, they lean so heavily on the run game and in deception in the run game. And there was an element of the scheme as the star. And you got to understand, like in 2019, Greg Roman's running the offense. Like Lamar's not checking out of plays at the line. Lamar's not being handed autonomy coming out of the huddle or diagnosing things and changing it up and audibling into what he wants to audible in or just getting out of the run game entirely. Like that's not what it was. And I mean, you kind of knew that the ball was going to Mark Andrews and the ball was going to Hollywood Brown if they did throw it. This is completely evolved. I mean, this is to the point where he's seeing the game so incredibly well. He's executing at such a remarkable level. They now have the element of Derrick Henry, but like if he wants to beat you with his running backs throwing to them, he can do that. He did that last night. If he wants to beat you throwing downfield out of the in the pocket, not on a scramble drill, running to his right, chucking it 50 yards downfield on a hope and a prayer. He's now beating you outside the numbers with Rashad Bateman 50 yards downfield, and he's doing it in the pocket. He could beat you with his tight ends. He could beat you with his legs. I think in the first half last night, he had 7 completions of 11 yards or more. He only threw the ball like 14 times. He hit 7 different receivers. It's like being I don't know, like Muggsy Bogues and Steph Curry at the same time. Like I can just be the ultimate facilitator, right, and make it about everybody else, or I can be the star of the show, depending on what we need at any given moment. And then, look, Derrick Henry's got more rushing yards in the fourth quarter now than most starting running backs have all season long, like all 4 quarters. Like to have him as the closer, I don't know, man. Like, and especially you look around the league and like Mahomes is not having a Mahomes season. No. Like Josh Allen is doing some really good stuff and he's not turning the ball over. They're not throwing the ball all over the yard. They're not throwing for 20 yards an attempt in an NFL football game against a team that everybody thought was going to the playoffs. Like he's not doing that. And it's the same cast around him other than Derrick Henry. There's nothing new in the pass game whatsoever other than year 2 of Lamar Jackson with Todd Monken in that scheme and them just continuing to evolve and to add different wrinkles and layers to it. They've got issues on defense. No 2 ways about it. And we'll see what they do between now and the trade deadline. But offensively, it's them and Detroit on their own planet. And then everybody else is, I guess, somewhere in that solar system. But those 2 teams with the ability to beat you with such cunning efficiency in the pass game and the ability to demoralize you with multiple elements in the run game, doing it with speed and power in the run game. I don't think anybody else is able to do what these 2 teams are doing right now. And when you add in Lamar's legs, which is something Jared Goff doesn't have. I mean, Carl, he might run for 1,000 yards, throw for 4,500 yards, throw for 35 touchdowns or more, and run for another 7 to 10.
It's nuts. He ran for 52 yards last night. Here's the thing and why Lamar's the best player in the league. And he's been this. I mean, he's been this, by the way. I just don't think we have given him as much credit. You know, the two MVPs speak volumes, but I know he's not gotten to a Super Bowl, and everybody wants to point to that. This dude is a hell of a player. He threw for 281 and was so efficient, to your point, Jason. 5 touchdowns, no interceptions. The similarity between him and Goff right now is their efficiency.
Ball doesn't touch the ground.
Yeah, Goff is throwing the ball 25 times, and he's got 22 completions. Lamar is in that similar vein, so he's the best player. There's no doubt about it. I heard Mark Andrews say it last night after the game, and, you know, everybody's just loving on him. Here's what I love about this whole story, and I know, Jason, you know it better than anybody being there. Carl Dukes, Jason LaCanfora, Brian Balding are part of this podcast, guys. It's in the Huddle. Subscribe, listen, and tell your friends. Don't miss an episode. We talk nothing but the NFL. How many teams passed on this dude?
Well, and how many times, Carl? How many times?
How many teams passed on this dude?
In the draft, and then as a non-exclusive franchise player, free to talk to any team. He couldn't get any of these billionaires to return his phone calls.
And remember,
they had 9 million excuses. I don't even want him in my building. I don't even want 5 minutes of his time. You're giving me a cell phone number? I don't want that. No, we got Desmond Ritter, or, you know, we got the carcass of this guy still here, or no. I really like the 2022 quarterback draft, and we'll solve our problems there. I mean, the way people ran from him, Stephen Ross and Arthur Blank.
Yes.
I mean, everybody had a reason why they didn't even want to pick up the phone and have a conversation about what we could do to bring him here, right? New Orleans. No, we're fine. We're gonna do this Derek Carr thing or whatever. Like, it's shameful. It's shameful. But it happened.
Buyer's remorse.
You couldn't get an audience with anybody.
No, I know. And everybody's like, nobody wants to give up 2 first-round picks. Let me ask you something. Would you give up 2 first-rounders now? Give me a break. I mean,
you're going to the playoffs with him year 1. So the second pick is going to be 30-something, 25th. You know what I'm saying? Like, any team that brought him in, you're going to win 9-10 games and you're going to the playoffs.
Easy.
Like, as long as he plays 12-13 games, you're going to the playoffs.
And Jason, you know, here's the other thing. We're talking about the Ravens win last night against the Bucs as we record this podcast on Tuesday. He destroys the NFC. I mean, he doesn't lose to the NFC when he plays the NFC. And I don't have an answer for that. I just don't even know how to describe it. But I think it's 1 loss in his career against the NFC. So we can talk about
it was to the Giants, and it was to a bad Giants team, but the defensive coordinator was Wink Martindale, who had been here with Lamar for 4 years. And he blitzed the hell out of him, and there was a bad snap and some weird stuff. I think they had one of those plays where somebody fumbled through the end zone. Like, it was the Giants beat them in the Meadowlands that day. But that's it. I think it's lack of familiarity. I think that plays a role in it. You know, you just don't see them enough to really get a handle on what they do. And he's just a hell of a football player. He wins a lot of regular season football games.
He does. He just wins, man. All right. They are obviously one of the best teams in the National Football League right now. They moved to 5-2 after the Bucs win last night. Bucs, as we mentioned, just need to mention they lost Mike Evans. They actually lost both of their wide receivers, which is a huge blow for them, because coming up, they've got the Falcons this Sunday, short week. I don't expect Mike Evans to be out there. Godwin looks like he's done. So all of a sudden, Baker Mayfield has got to find some new go-to guys. This thing looks completely different now all of a sudden, you know, literally 24 hours.
Baker Mayfield also needs to ratchet it down a few notches. Like, he had 3 picks in that game against the Saints. They overcame it in the second half. The 2 picks to Marlon Humphrey were just absolutely horrible. His decision-making was off.
He
got caught up in his own hype. He got caught up in some of his own highlights. And instead of just taking layups and, you know, 12 to 14 footers, he tried to prove that he could play Lamar ball with Lamar, and it backfired. It backfired mercilessly. They had control of that ball game, and they continued to move the ball until he ended drives with his decision-making. And eliminated their ability to keep tacking on points and maybe make the Ravens even more one-handed in terms of having to chase points and throw the ball and eliminate Derrick Henry. even more from the game plan. He's got to recalibrate now. Like that, he can't be turning the ball over like that. And Godwin was the best slot receiver in the NFL this year. Like, I don't even think it was that close. And to lose him in garbage time, and I see this every week, and I cringe every week watching these games late, and I've got some stupid bet that I'm watching, right? That's the only reason I'm still watching this game, is to see if somebody backdoor covers. And I'm always shocked at how many starters on both sides are still in these games that are 3-score games with 3 minutes to go. It's like, and I know it's not college. I know you don't have 100 kids on your sideline and you can't just sub everybody out. But man, oh man,
I know. Yeah, that's tough. I agree.
That's a tough way to lose a guy who was going to have to carry your offense even more without Evans.
Yeah.
The Bucs, man, I look at the Bucs so much differently now than I did,
Yeah, 24 hours ago, literally.
18 hours ago. Yeah, it's oof.
It's going to be interesting to see how that shakes out in the NFC South. Let's shift gears and talk about the Jets. There was a lot of talk about the Jets Sunday night. There were a couple of narratives that happened. One, Devontae Adams starting, being on the field with his boy. The other one, which I thought was bigger, was Russell Wilson starting at quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Jason, I didn't agree with it. I didn't think it was the right move. I didn't think that they should have, changed course. But I think the quote from Mike Tomlin, which is classic, is, "This is why I'm, nicely compensated," or something to that effect, where he basically said, "This is why I get paid the big bucks." Not only did it work, but Jason, does this catapult the Steelers to a place that we didn't think they were going to be offensively? Because we thought they were good defensively. We didn't think they would be good offensively like this.
Well, I think what it also does now, Carl, is once you get Russell comfortable in that locker room, right, in the regular season and winning some games, I think it's only a matter of time before common sense dictates. Drew Brees used to step aside for Taysom Hill in the red zone. And it wasn't a slight on Drew Brees. And it didn't mean that Drew Brees wasn't a first ballot Hall of Famer. It just meant that there's some stuff we do really well down here. And we got a different body type and a guy a lot younger and a lot more nimble with looser hips and a bigger frame who makes more sense to be a sledgehammer for us here or to be an outside runner for us. And so I think there will be. I mean, it would be really silly and short-sighted not to have a melding of this and take it to the next level where now you've got to prepare in week for power stuff with Fields, for sprint plays off tackle with Fields, and with Russell Wilson also, as the guy who's going to play 90% of the snaps at quarterback. But when will they go to the Fields package and what will that look like? I think the offensive line's getting a little healthier. This is the best we've seen out of Jaylen Warren in 2 weeks since December of last year. And that guy, to me, is one of the true keys to that offense. And when you get explosion from him in the run game, it just unlocks things even more for them. They had Russell boots and waggles, which was key. You saw both tight ends show up. Like, there's a lot to feel good about. And obviously the biggest thing of all is now George Pickens is he's not just pretending to fight for the ball. Like, he's not just winning 50-50 balls. He's winning 25-75 balls. He's winning balls that are basically in the DB's hands, and he's taking it away. Like, is that sustainable? I don't know, but I think he feels good about Russ giving him a chance, to look at his box score at the end of the game and feel good about it. So, yeah, I mean, I still feel like defensively they're going to have to, like, where is Watt physically? Is Patrick Queen going to really become a factor for them? Like, is Herbig going to come back? Can they get 2 or 3 pass rushers going at the same time? I think that's the next step for them defensively. But that was a big win, and now they get the Giants at home again in prime time. If they can take care of business there. Like, remember, all the Steelers divisional games at the back end. Cleveland's going to probably have sold everybody by then. Yeah. I think Cleveland's going to be playing for the first overall pick. We'll have to see about Cincinnati. I would not write them off. They're still there, and those games could be tough. And Pittsburgh's had Lamar Jackson, like, especially Pittsburgh with TJ Watt. Like, at worst, they split with Baltimore. So yes, Pittsburgh's interesting. Pittsburgh's viable. And I think Pittsburgh could ultimately lean into a two-headed monster.
I agree. The Jets, on the other hand, still a blank show. Where's the spark? It was supposed to be Saleh fired. It was supposed to be Hackett demoted. It was supposed to be Devontae on the field.
Yes.
Where's the spark that we keep talking about that's going to happen with the Jets?
Well, I mean, the spark might be they get to play the Patriots again, right? And that's the one. That's the one team that they bossed around. Like, that's the one team that they really, like, it wasn't garbage time. It wasn't, gadget stuff. Like, they bullied the Patriots up and down the field for four quarters. That's really the only team they've done that to. Like, they didn't do that to the Titans, even though they won that game. Like, I don't know, Carl. Like, my bigger concern with them is what's going to happen to their defense. And now you've seen a few injuries. Sauce Gardner's not having a great year. These backup corners are getting picked on. And for 2 straight weeks, somebody's run the ball for $150 on them and played keep away in the second half of these games and said, we're just going to road grade you a little bit here and see how you like it. And they haven't made halftime adjustments. The defense has gotten worse through the games. Well, the defensive coordinator is not the defensive coordinator anymore. He's at halftime having to placate Aaron Rodgers, right? He's at halftime having to, tell Devontae, no, it's going to be fine. Who knows? He's probably got the owner looking in the window at halftime, having to deal with, Woody. Like, he's not sitting there just with his defensive coaches figuring out what we're going to do and what we're going to take away. Like, he's not solely focused on how he's going to call the second half of the game for the defense. Like, this guy's got too much on his plate. And now he can't confer with Robert Saleh about what do you think we should do, boss? Because Saleh's gone. So they've got problems. They've got problems. And like Breece Hall had a nice game, but it was mostly in the screen game.
Yeah,
like I just don't buy that offensive line that week in, week out. They're going to have the right, they're going to be the right group. They're going to have the right mentality. And I don't believe that either tackle is going to hold up in the run game or the pass protection. So the schedule does lighten up from here on out, but they'll lose a game or two that they're supposed to win. And yeah, I mean, the quarterback's bitching about the energy. I mean, you're the leader of the team. You're making way more money than anybody else there. You're the guy who didn't think mandatory minicamp mattered, right? And you're the guy who thinks it's okay to go on your buddy's radio show for $1 million a year and spill the tea. And, you think it's a good idea to have one of the guys on your team who just got there staying at your house. Like, that's really a good look. Like, we got a bunch of multimillionaires. Like, you need to have sleepovers with Devontae. So you got, what I mean? So you guys can scheme up the stuff that, you like to do, but like, where's everybody? Like, it's just, the whole thing is really asinine.
It is. No, it is, man.
It really is like low grade. I mean, it's low grade theater. It's like a bad, soap opera. The plot twists are predictable. They got people calling it 2 weeks in advance in my column in the Washington. Here's what Woody's going to do next. He's going to fire the coach. Then he's going to go get Devontae Adams. And this is why it's not going to work before it happens. Like, you've got people saying this is what these fools are going to do, and here's how asinine it is, but they're going to do it anyway.
Here's the other part. We'd be remiss if we didn't mention Hassan Reddick. Drew Rosenhaus gets a deal for him. They waived the $12 million fines. He's there now. He's in the building. Okay, whoop-de-doo. It's not going to move the needle. First of all, dude's got to get into shape.
He needs to spend 2 or 3 weeks on the exempt list, like,
exactly.
Getting to play football again. Like,
I said this
in week 9 or week 10. Good luck. Okay.
I said this. I said whoever's doing a trade for him in last 2 weeks, we've been talking about this, and I said everything I'm hearing is this dude's been on the couch. He's not been working out, and I don't even if you were, it's not football shit.
Football. Yeah.
So this whole notion like, oh, he'll come in and he'll start immediately. No, he's not. Anyways, Jets are still a mess in my mind, and that was a good win for the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll see where they go. I'll tell you who else continues to impress. It's In the Huddle. Subscribe, like us, In the Huddle Pod. Watch us on YouTube, guys, and tell your friends. It's all about football. It's all about the NFL. The Kansas City Chiefs, they're 6-0. And Jason?
Just win, baby.
That's it.
Like their buddy Al Davis said for years in Oakland. Just win, baby. Andy Reid is now Al Davis.
I just don't understand how we just continue to kind of, and I get this, it's Patrick Mahomes, but we continue to kind of dismiss this from the standpoint of we expect it. I don't know. I mean, that game against the 49ers, Patrick Mahomes, 154 yards throwing the ball, 2 interceptions, and Jason, they win.
They suck in the red zone. They're not great on third down. The quarterback running the football was their most efficient sort of winning plays. But they don't look, the defense is so good. Special teams is solid. Even when the quarterback turns it over more than you'd like, and he's been doing it all year,
Yes.
they end up not beating themselves. And the great thing about Spags is even when Mahomes isn't being Mahomes, he's going to turn your guy over more than his, which, you know, he unmasked Brock Purdy. So, like, we can't judge them against Mahomes' first full year as a starter and 50 touchdown passes and taking the league by storm. Like, they're down their number one receiver, right? The guy they signed in free agency to replace Jerick McKinnon and be their red zone dervish, Hollywood Brown, never played a snap for them. Isaiah Pacheco hasn't played in a month, and nobody even talks about when he's coming back because we'll just give it to Kareem Hunt. We'll just have the quarterback run it. We'll get Xavier Worthy involved in the run game. We'll scheme it up. We'll figure it out.
Yep.
Kind of the exact opposite of what Miami's doing without their quarterback, right? We'll just find a way. We'll control the football. Our offensive line isn't great. This left tackle might not be ready. We'll mitigate and navigate that too. And they just know how to win games. When it's winning time, they will find a way to win the game. And the defense is the star. And I mean, it's almost like we forget. I'm just going back and looking. They haven't lost a game since Christmas Day when they had that terrible outing against the Raiders.
It's nuts. It's nuts. I mean, seriously.
I mean, they beat the Bengals. They beat the Chargers last year to get in the playoffs. Then it was, here comes a new path for Andy Reid. They've got to go on the road. How's that going to work out? They don't get the week off. So they went to Buffalo, right? And they beat, who did they beat the first week? Oh, Miami. All right. They destroyed Miami.
Yeah.
Which, okay. Yeah. And snow at Arrowhead. That's going to happen. Then they went to Buffalo, fell behind, won the game. Then they shut the Ravens down. And then they beat the 49ers in overtime. And they haven't lost a game this year. And it feels like, to me, people every week are trying to come up with, like, what's wrong with the Chiefs? Or I'm like, what's wrong with the Chiefs? I mean, could they have covered some games a little more? I guess. Like, should they have won? Should they have more double-digit wins, Carl? Like, I mean, it's okay if you like. I mean, all right, if that's where you're coming from, maybe, but I wouldn't want to play him.
No.
Like, and the thing about it is, it's not phasing Mahomes. Not that you thought it would. He's totally fine. He understands where they are right now and what the assignment is and who they're missing and who they have. And, like, he's not playing his best ball. Like, I'm not saying he's rising above it. But when he needs to just extend a play with his eyes and his mind and his legs, he's doing it. When he needs to just run 1 yard past the sticks to keep this drive going to set up a field goal, he's doing it. And I kind of think they're almost getting off on doing it this other way. Pacheco will be back at some point, right? And they will do something for the offense before the deadline. Like, there's no way they're not bringing in a pass catcher. I still think Christian Kirk makes the most sense. And, like, will they lose a game they're supposed to win? Sure. It's the NFL. Like, will Denver or the Chargers, like somebody like that, get them? They're not running the table. But they also might go from Christmas of last year to, like, Thanksgiving of this year without losing a football game.
Which is crazy.
And that's including the playoffs where they had to go to Buffalo. They had to go to Baltimore. I mean, like, they got the Raiders. They've got the beat-up Bucks. They get Denver. That'll be tough. They get Buffalo, at Buffalo, and then the Carolina. and then at Carolina. That's their schedule in November through Thanksgiving.
So they
I could see Denver beating them. Like Denver might beat them, Buffalo might beat them.
Yeah, they went 4 or 5. I mean, give me
But
a break.
if they do keep rolling, look out.
Yeah, it's funny you say they're getting off winning this way. This is the brilliance of not only Andy Reid, but to your point about Patrick Mahomes, to accept throwing for 154 yards and 2 picks. If you would have told me that was going to happen going to San Francisco and they were going to win, I would have said no way in hell. So this is a team, again, I know we're excited about the Ravens and what we're seeing with the Lions, but here are the damn Chiefs just chilling in the cut and waiting on everybody, Jason. Just kind of, hey, we're just going to handle our business. You guys go ahead and talk about all this other stuff out there. And it's just amazing. They are 6-0 after the win against the 49ers. That was a big spot everybody was talking about. We thought that was going to be a big game for the 49ers and Brock, and they just were not able to get it done. And again, injuries for the 49ers. Now with Ayuk's injury, no Christian McCaffrey. Jason, they're done. They're not going to the Super Bowl.
Oh, I don't think they're going to the Super Bowl, but I never thought they were going to the Super Bowl. I mean, just everything about that team this offseason looked like a team whose window was closing, and they refused to admit it. When it takes you that long to get right with some of your best players, and it bleeds into the regular season as it did, like it probably was time to have moved 1 or 2 of them in the summer and started to reconfigure this thing a little bit. Now, I think partly they didn't because I think they know that Purdy needs a certain ecosystem around him to be who they want him to be. And if you trade Ayuk in the summer and, somebody else gets hurt, then you might be in trouble. But it turns out they're in trouble. My biggest issue with them, honestly, is what's the excuse on defense? I thought it was all Steve Wilkes' fault, Kyle. You fraud. Like, how many like Brandon Staley was going to save the day and a bunch of people who were represented by your buddy. You got some agent friends. And so you want to give a soft landing spot to some of their boys who need work. Like, what's up with your defense? What do they do really well? Like, what are they great at? How are they helping you? Like, Andy Reid's defense is the star while his unit's banged up. What's going on with yours? Why are backup running backs gutting you? Like, why are other teams able to bully you? I mean, you want to just say the Hargrave injury? Like, you want to say that? You gave him too much money to begin with. He didn't do nothing for you last year. Like, what did you do to beef up your D-line? How did that DeForest Buckner situation work out for you? You think you should have just given him $20 million a year to begin with 5 years ago? Like,
well, Jason, that's the bigger issue, right? They've paid everybody. They paid everybody and still haven't accomplished the ultimate goal. So that's the bigger issue with the 49ers. And now you find yourself in this situation with the injuries. They've got an uphill battle. I want to talk about Saquon real quick here because we got
real quick though. I just want to San Francisco 49ers defense. Let's just look at the updated rankings here. 17th in yards per play allowed, 12th in yards per rush, 18th in yards per attempt, 27th on third down.
They're not living up to it.
23rd in the red zone.
Not living up to it.
What? You can't blame Steve Wilkes anymore. Who are you going to blame? What's the problem there?
Well, the personnel remains the same, didn't it?
Oh yeah. I mean, I thought you had it figured out. I thought you had a bunch of your cronies who were going to fix it. Okay.
Yeah, good point. The defense is not.
It was 19-19 after 4 quarters in the Super Bowl. That was the score. You fire your defensive coordinator. These guys scored 28 on you in your place, not on a neutral field. They didn't have Rashee Rice. They didn't have Pacheco. They're rotating left tackles. They never got Hollywood Brown on the field. Like, Kelsey did nothing. They still scored 28 points on you, and it could have very easily been more.
Yeah. Kelsey hasn't done anything pretty much all season, but you're absolutely right. Saquon Barkley, man, that was personal, wasn't it?
Yes.
And I loved it. Listen, I have no issues with anybody ever wanting to get back at somebody that has done them wrong. Let's be honest. The Giants, they did him dirty. And I love the fact that he was able to pay him back in this way. It's rare in our business, Jason, where you get to leave somewhere, you get fired or something, and you get to pay somebody back in a way where you get to throw up the middle finger. That was a big middle finger by Saquon.
Yes, it was. And like it was within the context of the game too. It wasn't like they were feeding this guy in garbage time to pad his box score. That was a tight game in the first half, and the only thing that really unlocked it or loosened it up was Saquon Barkley explosive plays. Um, Look, I thought that was a tricky spot for the Eagles, and in the first half, it was a tricky spot for the Eagles. No, he took that game over, and it was personal. Like we all saw Hard Knocks. We know that what happened there. And I guarantee you, nobody took it harder than John Mara himself. Like he was the one crapping his pants about. Oh, just tell me he's not going to Philadelphia. Like and they've got no offense to speak of there in New York. And Daniel Jones is just impersonating an NFL quarterback. And they've got some dudes who are playing hard. Don't get me wrong. But, I mean, Devin Singletary's been injured. Like, they're not running the ball. Yeah, that's tough. I wouldn't want to have been, Joe Shane after that game. But, he's also in the biggest market in the world, right? I mean, New York. I mean, I guess maybe Tokyo's bigger. Like, maybe Mexico City's bigger. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, but they don't have NFL football.
Maybe Sao Paulo, Brazil is a bigger media market than New York City. Like I'm sure there's New Delhi, right? New Delhi probably has more people per capita than New York City. But in the NFL, it doesn't really get any bigger than New York. And this guy's been a little bit of a penny pincher. He's always looking for reasons why we can't do this or we can't do that. They didn't have the balls to go and reset with another quarterback, right? They decided to run it back with Daniel Jones on their Band-Aid contract. And now they're getting what they deserve. And it goes to ownership. It all goes to ownership. There's no reason that they couldn't have kept Saquon Barkley. They're not paying top money to 8 guys on that team. Like, they're paying Dexter. They're paying the quarterback more than he should be making, but it ain't a back-breaking quarterback salary by any stretch of the imagination. They don't have, Burns. All right. I mean, what am I missing? The wide receivers on a rookie deal, who's making money on the offensive line? Like, they could have done it. They didn't want it. They decided they didn't want to do it.
That's it.
They got cheap. And hey, that's fine. You better find a way to do it your way without him. And it's not working out very well.
No. And the Eagles needed that game, by the way. I mean, there's two sides.
Big time.
The Eagles needed that game. Sirianni needed that game. That was that things were going to really escalate in Philly if that didn't happen. So they got it done. To your point, it wasn't what I expected, but at the end of the day, they walk out of there with a dub. It's in the huddle. Let's talk about Jared Goff and the Lions for a second. They played the Vikings. As we kind of review, guys, and talk about what happened this last week. We'll look ahead on Thursday. Baldy will be here for some breakdowns, and we'll talk about all the things as we look ahead to Week 8. Jared Goff, we were talking about this with Lamar, right? 22 of 25, 280 yards, just efficient, 2 touchdowns. They're not asking him to go throw for 500 yards every game. But, Montgomery was hurt, I think, in this game, and Gibbs ends up running for over 100 yards. But, Jason, offensively, man, they're just the scheme is brilliant by Ben Johnson, isn't it?
Well, I mean, especially you're going against the number 1 defense in the NFL. Like if you look at EPA and some of the advanced metrics, you're having to do it in their place. Jameson Williams ends up being a complete non-factor. Right now, he's suspended for 2 games, but you get nothing out of him. Montgomery, who's usually the guy you like to feature in the first quarter and the fourth quarter, the tone setter, like he's out a chunk of the first half, and you don't know if he's coming back. And you still roll up 31 points, and it could have easily been more. They've got more offensive touchdowns than incomplete passes over the last 3 weeks. Like that's high school football stuff. That's not supposed to happen in the NFL. Yeah, I mean, Jared, look, they ran the ball like 50, or they threw the ball like 50 sometimes in that loss to Tampa. And I knew there was going to be a meeting between Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson saying, hey, man, that's not who we are. That's not who we are. And since then, it's back to Jared Goff throwing around 23 to 25 times, which with their running game and with how much they can hold the football in the run game and time of possession, they don't need to be chucking the ball all over the place. It's about throwing it when we're in best positions to throw and gut people. And they've been Goff's been an assassin for about 4 weeks now. I mean, I don't know what I don't have any other superlatives for the way he's quarterbacking right now. Like it's masterclass stuff. He's putting the ball exactly where it needs to go when it needs to be there. They've got plenty of playmakers. They've got, I think, the best offensive line in the league. Baldy can speak to that more than me. Defensively, let's see what they do in the next 2 weeks here. We're 2 weeks from the deadline. Like, they need to go get a pass rusher. Zadarius Smith. Go get Zadarius Smith and Jadeveon Clowney. I mean, remember, they lost Marcus Davenport in September as well. Go get an inside guy and an outside guy and really beef up your D-line rotation. There's nothing stopping them from it. Go spend that money. You've turned that franchise around. You're a hot ticket now. You're going to have playoff receipts, right? You're going to have some home playoff games, most likely. So they should get after it. That to me should be the most aggressive team at the trade deadline. Like, there's no two ways about it. People around the league are waiting to see what they do. The defense needs some reinforcements.
It does.
To play at the level in January that they're going to want to play at. But they're a joy to watch offensively, man. And this was less than perfect game script on a less than perfect day against your rivals who hadn't lost all year. And in their place, and you navigate that final drive to win. Good on them.
It was a very entertaining game, though. I mean, and Sam Darnold, give him credit. He was pretty damn good as well in this game. Aaron Jones is running the ball well for the Vikings. There's a lot to be said about this Vikings team. It's not just the defense, which is really good, but this is one of those games where they needed the offense to score to keep up with the Lions, and they did that. Although they come up short. You still think who's winning this division real quick, Jason? Because we've talked about the Packers, and they're still there. This is a big, division game for the Lions to win. You have the Lions winning this division? Do you like the Packers, or you still think the Vikings are going to get it done?
I picked the Packers to win the division. Jordan Love is giving me a little pause right now. And I talked about Baker Mayfield. That's Jordan Love right now, too. Like, he's so in love with some of the things he's doing with the deep ball that he's also throwing 2 or 3 more jump balls than he needs to throw. And those are ending up in other people's hands. They've got to talk to him about that. I'm sure they will. It's not just, the fact that you've turned the ball over, but there's been critical points in drives in games where I felt like they're starting to establish and exert their dominance. And then it's an unnecessary forced ball. And now you've switched momentum, and you've taken opportunity away from yourself to score more points. I wouldn't write the Packers off, though, man. The defense gets better week after week after week, and I thought it would take some time to adjust to the new coordinator, but I like what I'm seeing. Special teams has been god awful there forever. It's finally ticking up as well. I wouldn't. I mean, I don't think Chicago's going to win the division, but they might. But like, health will obviously have something to do with it. You lose somebody like Aiden Hutchinson, even if you go get some reinforcements, there's still 10 weeks of football to play. I kind of still like the Packers. I kind of still like the Packers.
That's who I picked as well. And going into the season, I said Jordan Love should be an MVP candidate.
Me too.
That's where I'm living right now. But this is going to be an interesting division. Before we get out of here, Deshaun Watson injury. Shame on Cleveland fans. I get it. I know you're frustrated with how this thing has gone, and it's been a blank show too. But this dude is down and being carted off, and you're cheering. This is what I think, Jason. I think he's obviously done in Cleveland. No matter how this shakes out, he's going to have the surgery. He'll recover. He'll get back. But it gives him another year to get closer to try to get out of this deal.
Well,
and I still feel like when it's all said and done, with the way things have gone, they've got to look to the future now. I mean, you just can't say, all right, Deshaun will be back in a year, we'll be fine. So I hate it for the kid. I didn't like seeing him being, cheered off the field by some, not all, but some Cleveland fans. But I get it. And then where do they go from here?
Well, I mean, I had people a couple of weeks ago telling me, like, look, this is going to be a Bobby Bonilla situation. Like, there's going to be a point in time in the NFL calendar where every, August the 12th, it's Deshaun Watson Day, and it's the year 2035, and Jimmy Haslam just gave Deshaun Watson another $3.5 million.
Yeah.
Like, that's where it was going even before this injury, because it had to, because there's too much term left on this contract, and there's no other way out. So you're going to have a settlement with him. With this injury, they're going to continue to lose. I think they're going to have a major fire sale before the deadline to continue to lose to try to get one of the top 2 quarterbacks in the draft. And at that point, Deshaun Watson's not going to get any reps all spring and summer. You're going to be, this kid and whoever the backup is, but you're probably going to want to see this kid sooner than later. And are you really going to want to deal with Deshaun Watson back in your building, week 3 or week 4? Hey, I'm ready to start and earn my money. I think they probably have to nip that in the bud. Yeah, they're going to have to pay him to go away. I mean, and they already were, but the timing of this now, I just don't think you can have that hanging over whoever your next face of the franchise quarterback is, whoever you draft 3rd overall or 2nd overall, or who knows, maybe even 1st overall. Like, that just really wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, he's going to sit there for $55 million a year or $50 million fully guaranteed and hold a clipboard. Like, he's the mentor. You know what I mean? Like, no. He's the older sounding board guy. Hey, here's what I was doing when I was 25. Like you can't, you know what I'm saying? Like, stop it.
Yeah.
No, that's you can't sell that. And it doesn't make sense. Yeah, and I do think they'll have I think Zadarius Smith, I think, Hicks. I mean, like, will they trade Denzel Ward or Myles Garrett? I don't know. Some GMs I talk to think maybe one of them, probably not both, but maybe one of them. And if you do one, maybe you do the other also. Like, there'll be a major financial recalibration there. And he's trying to get $1 billion now, right, out of the state and the city to build him a dome.
New stadium.
Like, you got a better chance with that, probably winning some games with a young quarterback who everybody's excited about. You know what I mean? Than trying to prop up a guy who they literally booed, to your point, when it looked like the season was over. Like, there's an optics part to this as well. So, yeah, but they're a wreck. They're a wreck, and it like all these situations we talk about, Jets, Giants, it's the owner. Just look at the owner. Dallas Cowboys, it's the owner.
It's the owner. Jason, great stuff, man. As always, subscribe, like us in the Huddle, wherever you get your podcast, guys. Baldy will be here on Thursday. We'll start to break down what's going to happen, not only Thursday night, but also heading into the weekend. Almost, I guess, to the halfway point, right? I mean, hell, believe it or not, in this NFL season, which is crazy. Lots to discuss, big matchups ahead. Thank you guys for being here, and everybody have a great day.